This is Robert Littal with BlackSportsOnline.com, and I have the pleasure to speaking to the iconic, one of the greatest play-by-play men in all of sports. Jim Lampley has taken out the time to speak with us today about the upcoming Canelo Alvarez, Edward Berlanga fight that's coming up next week in Las Vegas. Thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time out to do this for us.
My privilege, and thank you very much for the kind introduction.
Let me ask you a question this first. You just got back into this when HBO finished their boxing run. You took some time, off kind of to yourself, and you got back into this with PBV.com. For you, was that like, a hard decision, or was it like riding a bike? How did that all come about, and how are you enjoying your time now that you're back doing what you love so much?
Of course, I called my last fight on HBO with Roy Jones and Max Kellerman, December 2018. I frankly would not have anticipated at that moment that I would not be asked by some existing boxing delivery service to come and call television fights for them. That didn't happen, maybe because of my age and the time that I had spent at HBO. It's not at all illogical. And once I realized that I wasn't going to be stepping into some other play-by-play situation, I went to fulfill a kind of longtime ambition to come to my alma mater, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and teach a course in the communications department here. I was invited to do that quite a while ago. I was given the privilege of coming here to Chapel Hill and creating a course called Evolution of Storytelling in American Electronic News Media. I actually was talking about storytelling in news media rather than sports, because I thought that subject had a great deal more societal meaning. Subsequent events have made it even more important than I thought. And I taught the course for 5 semesters, and then eventually PPB.com reached out and explained to me their new innovative approach to helping to tell the stories of boxing matches. And so for the past year, I've been going to ringside to participate in live chat with my PPV.com colleagues, Lance Pugmire, boxing scene, Chris Algieri, welterweight fighter, Dan Canobio, whose family developed CompuBox, the actual box score for boxing, and me. We all sit together at ringside and offer observations in live chat during the course of the fight about what we're seeing. It's been a great way to continue being a part of telling the stories of big fights, and I don't have to put on makeup, and I don't have to worry about the sound of my voice, and it's richly satisfying for me. So here I am. Next week will mark exactly 1 year since my first PPV.com engagement. That was a Canelo Alvarez fight. And now here comes another Canelo Alvarez fight, this time against the slugger Edgar Berlanga.
To talk about that fight, a lot of people are a little bit disappointed in Canelo Alvarez for taking the Berlanga fight. As someone that's been in the business as long as you have, and knowing so much about Canelo's career, what do you think about this particular fight? And then what happens when a fighter gets a little bit older in his career and decides, he has a little bit more control over who he fights, even if it's something that the fans maybe aren't that interested in?
Well, it's a long existing tradition in the sport. It's gone on forever. When a fighter earns the kind of status that Canelo has earned, then there come moments toward the end, and logic tells you chronologically he's somewhere toward the end, when he has the right to service not necessarily the elevated demand or the ambitious demand of the audience that he continue burnishing his Hall of Fame credentials, and takes advantage of the chance to make money. Now, when Edgar Berlanga was in the middle of his beginning streak of success in his career, when he had 16 consecutive first round knockouts, um, you couldn't have been sure where ultimately he was going to wind up at this moment in Canelo's catalog. But subsequent events since the 16 first round knockout streak have led most of us in the ringside expert category to come to the conclusion that that was as much about matchmaking as anything else, and that Berlanga is somewhat one-dimensional. The one dimension that Berlanga has is straight-ahead punching power. The one qualification you might bring to the ring to fight against Canelo Alvarez, which is least likely to earn you victory, is straight-ahead punching power. He's proven many times, I believe, that he has as much ability to take big punches and resist big punches and continue to fight and turn the fight in his direction as pretty much any fighter I've ever covered. You know, in the parlance of the sport, we say he has a great chin, because I know Canelo well and have followed his progress for a long time. I don't limit that to the chin. He has great balance, tremendous lower body strength. He has polished it for years riding horseback in addition to his in the gym boxing training. I've never seen anybody since the one time that a knockdown was scored when we were first covering him on HBO and he was knocked into the ropes by Miguel Cotto's little brother, Jose Cotto. And because the ropes seemed to hold Canelo up, it was ruled a knockdown. I haven't seen him since then knocked off balance or put in real jeopardy or danger of going down. He has a phenomenal ability to take a punch. So that alone, combined with the seemingly one-dimensional character of how Berlanga fights, is enough to make Canelo a big favorite in the fight. No, he's not fighting David Benavidez. No, he's not fighting David Norrell. No, he's not fighting the smaller Terence Crawford. This is not an ambitious matchup. This is the kind of matchup that in the long tradition of the sport, fighters like Canelo have been treated to, and it has been allowed and understood. And fans will sit back and say, okay, I get to watch him one more time now while he makes money. And then maybe he'll go on to another bigger fight where I fear he'll be challenged. Does it mean that Berlanga has zero chance whatsoever? That's not boxing. In boxing, and particularly if you can punch, you've always got a shot. And you never know, after all of the years which have now gone by, when we reach the moment when Canelo has bought enough spectacular mansions and horseback riding properties in Guadalajara and the Guadalajara era, when he's had enough fabulous dinners and nights of partying with all of his wealthy Mexican friends, when he's enjoyed the fruits of his labor enough that he comes to the ring with just a little bit less than he has had before. It happens cumulatively. It doesn't happen overnight. The fighter isn't always aware of it. Most great fighters have at some point reached that moment. Canelo hasn't reached it yet, but we never know when it's going to happen.
You have witnessed many upsets in your career. I'm sure
Oh,
some
yeah.
more shocking than others. If Edgar Berlanga was to beat Canelo Alvarez, oh, what level of upset would that be? Are we talking Tyson, Buster Douglas level, or maybe a little lower than that? How out of your whole career, what would you rank that upset if he was able to do this?
Well, frankly, and looking back, um, I think it would be a bigger upset than Buster Douglas knocking out Mike Tyson. And the reason I say that is because the Tyson myth was so evocative and so overwhelming at the time that there was a tremendous tendency for a lot of us, myself included, to see him as cosmically unbeatable. And some people laughed at the Buster Douglas matchup. But if you had carefully dissected what had happened to Tyson before, you would have seen, and I pointed it out to some people, that he went the distance with Tony Tucker. He went the distance with Mitch Bloodgreen. He went to the last 10 seconds with Jose Ribalta. He had several instances in which he was not knockout dominant against fighters who were taller than he was, had a little bit of footwork, had a jab that could distract him in some way, and particularly if they brought the right hand over the top where the shorter Mike Tyson might have difficulty seeing it coming. Buster Douglas had all those qualities. And oh, by the way, if you put him in the list with the other guys that I mentioned, um, he was the best athlete. He had been a college basketball player. He was motivated by the death of his mother. Mike was overwhelmingly distracted by elements of his personal life, his troubled marriage to Robin Givens, the struggle that was going on among Don King and Mike's remaining promotional backing, Bill Caton. His beloved matchmaking manager, Jimmy Jacobs, had died. So if you put all of that together and looked at it really carefully, you might have had a much clearer understanding of what was possible in Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas. I can't tell you I saw it before the fight. I can tell you that I considered all those factors as the rounds went on. But most of us were blinded by the dynamic glamour of what Mike had done up to that point.
I think you would be uniquely qualified to speak about this next point. Turki Alalshikh has kind of come into the boxing, this crazy world of boxing that we all kind of work and live in. A storm kind of coming in, and with all these kind of ideas and all these type of big events and a lot of big money and a lot of things going on. As someone that has seen it all in boxing, how do you feel about the Saudi involvement? How Turkey is coming about this, and do you think that it's a positive thing, or in the long run, maybe it's a little bit short sighted and not so much a positive thing?
Well, I've heard people surmise that with all of that money and he has some boxing awareness and knowledge, and he's obviously following these careers. That with all of that behind him, that he might be able to sort of take over the sport or become the central figure in determining the career paths of the top heavyweights and the superstar fighters like Canelo. But the fight that we're about to see is evidence of the fact that he is not in an all-powerful position yet. This isn't the fight he wanted to see. He tried to make Canelo versus Terence Crawford, and for whatever reason, Canelo was not interested in fighting Terence Crawford. He wanted to go ahead and do his own thing at this moment and fight Edgar Berlanga. Al-Sheikh, by his own admission, was disappointed by that. So we're not yet at a position where Al-Sheikh has become Tex Rickard or Don King, the kinds of guys who in the past have amassed enormous promotional power and seemed to have control of the sport at the upper level. We're not there yet. And, you know, even Tex Rickard and Don King ran into obstacles that they could not control. So it's an entrepreneurial business. It's a highly volatile chemical environment. And I'm talking about matchmaking and the career progress of great fighters. And you're dealing with enormously egotistical and deservedly so, and self-possessed individuals like Canelo, who are determined to make their own decisions and not to be controlled or told what they're going to do by somebody outside the ring. Even Tyson got tired of King. So at the end of the day, you know, I think Al-Sheikh can possibly do some good things for boxing because he's certainly not unaware. As I say, he's following the careers of the fighters, and he has a decent idea about what people might want to see. But at the end of the day, the fighters make these decisions, and they make them in their minds and in their hearts and in the privacy of their own environments. And that's why Canelo Alvarez is defying the expectations of a lot of people by fighting Edgar Berlanga at this moment.
Well, I appreciate you taking out the time of your busy day to talk to me. Can you please let everyone know if they want to watch the ppv.com broadcast coming up next Saturday? What's the best way for them to do it? How they can sign up, things of that nature, and how they can keep following what's going on with your illustrious career as you move forward.
Well, it works very easily. They sign up for the telecast, and in the process of signing up for the telecast, they'll see a box they can click or a prompt that they can respond to where they can join ppv.com. And if they click the box, they say yes, they join ppv.com. They're right there on the same live chat stream with me and Lance Pugmire and Dan Canovio and Chris Algieri. And we all trade together our observations about the fights. It's a lot of fun. I get a lot of positive feedback and reinforcement from it. Every once in a while, somebody will push back and say, I don't agree with you, or I'm not sure why you would say exactly that. We do the undercard fights too, in addition to the main event. But it's a sharing process. It's a communal way of communicating about the fight. And I look forward to more and more people every time joining ppv.com.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lampley. This has been a pleasure of mine to be able to talk to you. I sat close by to you at some of the fights, and I'm always whispering to people or telling my wife or texting my friends, "Hey, I'm sitting next to Jim Lampley right now. How cool is that?" And that's something when I was coming up and watching you when I was in high school and in college. I could not imagine years later being able to sit next to you and listen to your insights on a fight. So that's always been a pleasure of mine, and you've always been very delightful, not just to me because I observe these type of things, but to all of the fans and all of the other reporters that are there. You're one of the nicest individuals, always willing to do an interview, always willing to talk and help us out and make us be better journalists. So thank you so much for your entire contributions to the world of sports media over the years.
You're welcome, Robert. As you can see from the smile on my face, you are my new best friend. I'm sure one or more of your favorite fighters are represented in the credentials on this wall behind me, and I look forward to seeing you again here on Zoom.